So I was in my dad's house. I had just moved from the TV room to my room, and I think I tried watching something on the TV, but it didn't work. And technology usually doesn't work in dreams, so I think that made me want to do a reality check. So realized it was a dream, and left towards the TV room again. And I wanted to try manifesting like a table of a bunch of like just sweets and stuff. So yeah, I tried to do Tifero's method of like imagining it existing behind a door and then going through the door. So I did that and it worked. And yeah, just a nice big party table. And I guess because it looked like a party table, it caused other people to be around. So now there was a bunch of people kind of crowding the table. And I feel kind of bad about this, but I kind of used like hand motion commands to like push all the people away so I could get at the snacks and stuff. Um you'll find out why I feel bad about it later on in the dream or in the story of the dream. But yeah, so I'm just there snacking my heart out and and then the dream changes. So now I'm back in my room at my dad's old house. Um, I don't know if I called it my dad's house earlier, but it's my dad's old house. He has a new house now. Not that that matters. But yeah, so I'm in my old room, but it's a lot bigger. Mostly just wider, but the ceiling was pretty high too. And there were more doors in that room than actually existed. Um, and they were kind of short doors, like kind of Dobby sized doors. Dobby the elf of Harry Potter fame. So yeah, I opened it. I opened one trying to manifest some more sweets. Um, Tried it twice. Nothing happened with the first door. When I opened the second door, a dog was manifested instead. Which is not very close to sweets, but yeah. So he was running around being a dog. I'm not a huge fan of dogs, so I tried to put him back in the closet. It was kind of difficult, but I managed to do it. Um, so yeah, once he was back in there, I then wanted to leave through the window. Um, in that old window, there was blinds, but they were kind of they were not these kind of blinds that are just like pretty chill. They were a lot more solid, both in real life and in the stream. So now I'm kind of trying to pull off those blinds so that I can get through the window. But that thing happened where I would pull off the blinds, but more would just appear under it. So I tried again, but visualizing what it would look like if the blinds were gone. And so that worked. And then I was able to just burst through the glass and fly out. So I flew around the house back to the backyard where that party had been. But this time these two bouncer dudes were trying to not let me in. So I used my lucid dreaming abilities again, just kind of did that and made them just like blast off like Team Rocket basically. Um so I was there walking around the party tables and stuff. And this really businessy looking lady walked up and told me, well, she said he wants to meet with you. And she didn't actually have to say who it was. I kind of knew, I think. But I was like, oh, I'm busy. And then she said something that made me understand that I had to go meet with that guy. Or I don't know if she said something or if I just understood it after a second. So then I walked inside. It no longer looked like my dad's old house. So now it was like I was walking into like a pretty big business looking type of building, like maybe an office building, but also kind of like a government building. So I walk through the lobby and through these doors, and inside those doors, it looked like a like a movie theater, like not the whole theater building, but one of the individual theaters, like Theater 5, for example. Um, and there were two alien looking dudes sitting at like a bar. It wasn't like a bar for alcohol. There was no drinks or anything. It was just there was just a bar there on the wall, and these two aliens were sitting on stools, and there were other seats all around and stuff. But yeah, it wasn't like a restaurant. I guess it was kind of just like a waiting area, and they have briefcases, and one of them kind of looks like Thanos. He reminded me of Thanos. I don't remember like when I try to imagine them. I can't get like details of their face, but I just remember that they were both big and like muscular, and one was purple and he reminded me of Thanos, and one was green, and yeah, so the purple one had his briefcase. He was taking out papers, and he was saying to the other alien that they might have to take away my ability to lucid dream. So I walk up to them, and the purple one, he seemed like he was the one like more in charge. He walks up to me, and he says, "You know what you have to do, right?" And I just understood that he meant that I need to stop treating dream characters like they're not real, or like they don't have their own consciousness and feelings and stuff. Um, because as was evident in earlier in this dream, I tend to do that. Like I always thought that dream characters, and I'm not sure about this, but I always thought that dream characters were just like constructs of my subconscious, and they're not like real people. But and I'm still not sure about this, but I know that in this dream, after he told me this, at that point and afterwards for the rest of the dream, I was positive that lucid dream characters have their own consciousness and they're their own beings and stuff, like kind of like beings just living in another dimension. So I told him that I understand, and he seemed to be happy with that, and he let me go. So now I was determined to be a bit nicer to the dream characters. So then the dream changes, and now I'm kind of in like an apartment building. It's kind of like in the show Friends. You know how they have their apartments, but their apartments have like a common room and a couch and a kitchen, and then they have like rooms inside their apartments, like the individual rooms. It was kind of like that. So just big apartments, I guess. So I was in one of these, and it was dark, both outside and inside. The lights were off, but and it was nighttime. Sorry about that. My mom is texting me and stuff. So yeah, but even though it's both nighttime and all the lights are off, there's people like hanging out and just talking and stuff. And I see Daredevil, um, like the actor from the Netflix show, walk into one of those little rooms, and I kind of like just sneak in past him. But then he gives me like a look of like, "What are you doing, dude?" And then I remember that I was just told not to be a jerk anymore. So I leave back to where I came from. So now I'm back in like this common area, and all the other people are mad at me, and so they kind of start coming after me. So I run towards the window, and instead of breaking through it, I make sure that I open it with a hand motion command so that it's just open, so they don't have to break anything. Um, and I'm able to do that, and I jump through, and and then it's kind of the dream. I start to lose the dream. You know what I forgot to mention? So earlier in the dream, I had also started to the dream started to fade, and so I remembered that I wanted to try spinning around because they say that that stabilizes the dream. And I had tried it before and it didn't work, but this time, like before a few years ago, but this time it worked. So that was really awesome. So yeah, that happened before I tossed those bouncers into the air, Yeah, just a little bit before that. But anyways, so yeah, I jumped out the window to escape those dudes, um, and I started to lose the dream again. So I kind of tried to do like spin around in the air, um, and I wasn't able to like fully do it. I kind of was just visualizing what that would look like, but it didn't really feel like it was happening. But it still kind of worked. In fact, it still did work for sure. So yeah, the dream came back. So now I'm falling down through those skyscrapers and stuff, or falling down past them, and it's still nighttime. But now I can see the lights of the cars driving by underneath me, and the building lights were still all dark, but I could see the car lights. So I decided to kind of try doing like a sonic boom type of speed burst, but that didn't really work. But yeah, I decided to try to control the direction of my flight with just by pointing with my hand. Normally, I kind of like turn with my whole body, but yeah, I don't know why I got this idea, but I wanted to try just doing it by pointing with my hand, and it worked like a charm. Um, yeah, very excellent control of the direction and stuff. And then the dream changed. So now I was back at my dad's old house. It was kind of like that same party was still going on. Um, but now I was inside, and there were a bunch of couches facing each other, and people sitting on the couches conversing and stuff. Um, one person was talking about a spell, like they were talking about how they cast a certain spell, and I thought that they were talking about like a real spell, like they were a witch or something. But it turned out they were just talking about like World of Warcraft or something. Um, so yeah, then I decided to just sit down with them on the couch, and I started thinking about how now I have to just be nice. I mean, I do it in real life. I can be nice in dreams too. So then, still sitting on the couch, I decide to try to recall or try to remember the the lucid dream that I just had, or just try to remember all the things that I just did, so that I don't forget when I wake up. And then I start to wake up, and I decide not to dream chain because that was already a pretty long lucid dream, so I didn't want to extend it further and risk forgetting parts of it. So that was definitely a very interesting one. Um, and the control that I had in that dream was really, really, really good. I think probably the best amount of control that I've ever had in a lucid dream, with the manifesting stuff and the good control of the flight, and yeah, all the stuff. Although I did fail to manifest snacks the second time, but other than that, I pretty much was able to do everything I wanted to do, everything I tried to do in that dream. So now there's the question of, was it real? Like, were those real conscious beings that were telling me to to be considerate of dream characters? There's no definitive way to answer that. We can't even measure really consciousness in real life. I mean, we can kind of, hook up people to MRI machines. That might not be the right machine, but to, those machines where you plug those thingies on people's heads and where they measure brain activity. So what they're doing now is they're measuring the complexity of the brain activity, and they're saying when the brain activity is more complex, that person is conscious, and when it's not as complex, they're either not as conscious or they're not conscious at all. Like maybe they're in a coma, or I don't know, just a not conscious state. So I mean, there's that way to measure it, but even then, how can you confirm that? Because the only way that you might be able to confirm it is you wake the person up and tell them, were you conscious? But that doesn't answer the question definitively or scientifically, because I don't want to go too far off on a tangent, but the whole brain in a vat philosophical question of like, you know, yeah, all these people tell me that they're conscious, but are they really conscious, or am I really the only one that is conscious? And are they just like figments of my imagination? Long story short, it comes down to what I choose to believe. Even if they're not really dream characters, even if they're not really their own conscious beings, there's still that whole thing where people say that dream characters are basically you. So if you mistreat a dream character, you're mistreating yourself. So if that's the case, then I still should be more considerate to them. It's possible, like let's say hypothetically that they're not real. It's possible that I had this appear in my lucid dream because I'm currently taking an ethics class in college. So these are questions that are kind of coming up. We just talked about this story that Plato told. I don't remember the specific name of it because it was, something in Greek. But it was the Ring of something. I think it started with a G. And it was essentially just the Lord of the Rings story, but a little different. I'm guessing that Lord of the Rings was based on this story. But essentially, there was a guy who claims to be moral, and he acts like a moral guy, a just guy. But one day he finds this ring that allows him to turn invisible. And now that he has that power, he goes and, he does all this bad stuff and takes over the kingdom and stuff. And the moral of that story was that even a good person is only good because they have to be, because of laws and law enforcement and stuff. But if they were given the opportunity to do whatever they want without repercussions, they would do that. So it's basically like everyone's a bad person if they were allowed to be. And that got me thinking about me in a lucid dream, where I'm, basically just a jerk because I can be sometimes. I think from now on I'm gonna be nicer to dream characters. Because for one, maybe they are conscious in some way, but even if they're not, I think being mean to dream characters might have a bad effect on my subconscious over time, assuming that they are essentially just representations of my own subconscious. This reminds me of stories about slavery and stuff, where white people said that, like, both with African Americans and Native Americans, they always said that they were savages and they don't have a soul. And in ancient times, the soul was basically a way to think of consciousness. So when they say they don't have a soul, what they're trying to say is that they don't have a consciousness, they don't have experiences, which is also what they thought of animals like dogs and stuff. So they said, they're savages, they're basically animals, they don't experience anything, so it doesn't matter if I abuse them. And that's basically exactly what I have been thinking about dream characters. So yeah, I think I'm gonna start being nicer to them, and at least, like, behaving as though they are their own conscious beings, whether they are or not. So this video is really long now. As far as stuff that I did to become lucid yesterday or last night, I had blueberries during my wake back to bedtime for the first time in a long time, and that might be it. But the previous times that I tried blueberries during wake back to bed, it didn't work nearly as well as it seemed to work last night. Like, those lucid dreams that I had weren't nearly as controlled. So last night could have been a fluke. Like, maybe I just happened to have a lot of control last night, and it wasn't affected by the blueberries. So I'm going to keep having blueberries for the next few nights during wake back to bed to see if I can replicate it. Actually, now I'm taking a psychology class, and we were talking about the scientific method and stuff, so now I know these little terms, replicate and stuff like that. Control group, experimental group. Anyways, what I'm doing cannot actually be considered scientific because I don't have a control group or experimental group. I basically just am the experimental group. But the other thing that was different about yesterday was that I had some Coke with dinner, which I don't do that often now. So I was thinking maybe it could have been that, because there have been a few times when I had lucid dreams on nights that I had Coke for dinner. In fact, I was thinking that one time when I cleaned my room and I had a lucid dream for the first time in several nights, I was thinking that it was because of the fact that I cleaned my room, and so I no longer had these allergens and stuff kind of messing with the efficiency of my body, basically, which then would mess with the efficiency of my brain. But I looked back on the notes for that day, and I also had Coke with dinner that night. So I'll have to keep experimenting with those two things and see if either of them actually do have an effect, or if it's really just by chance that I'm having these lucid dreams when I do. Alright, but I think this video is long enough. So see you next time.